Hi, I'm Clara. Today, I'm going to read you the story of Emily, which is titled like this. My sister knocked at midnight in tears and said, "My husband is bullying me." I welcomed her in, but 2 months later, her husband and his parents moved in with me, stating they needed to work on a relationship. Then I heard what they were planning. All right, let's leave. I'm Emily, and I'm 39 years old. I live alone in my big house that I bought 3 years ago after saving up for years working as a programmer. It's got 4 bedrooms, a nice kitchen, and a guest room that I figured would be perfect for when friends visit. I work from home, which means I can set my own schedule and don't have to deal with office drama. Life's been relatively tranquil recently. My younger sister Clara is 35. She's always been the family favorite. She has always been pampered by her parents. Clara lives in a rented apartment across town with her husband, Mark, whom she married 25 years ago. She claims that Mark earns enough money for them both, but she doesn't work. She boasts about how wonderful her marriage is and how passionate they are every time we speak. She asks me when I'll find someone and loves to remind me that I'm still single. I simply brush it off, but it gets old. I had just finished setting my alarm for 7 a.m. that night. I had a significant project deadline approaching, so I intended to begin work early the following day. I was already settling into my covers when I heard it, and the house was quiet. Bang, bang, bang. Someone was banging on my front door as if it were their last. My heart began to race. Who the hell shows up at someone's house at midnight? I grabbed my robe and slowly made my way downstairs, trying to be as quiet as possible. The pounding continued. "Emily, please open up." I went cold. That was Clara's voice, but she sounded horrible, like she was crying and screaming at the same time. I ran to the door and glanced through the peephole. Clara was standing there with a suitcase, her face red and puffy from crying. Her hair was a mess, and she kept peeking over her shoulder like someone was following her. I unlocked the door and barely got it open before she pushed past me into the house. "Clara, what the hell happened?" I questioned, locking the door behind her. She dropped her suitcase and simply started weeping. I mean, really sobbing, the kind where you can't catch a breath. I'd never seen her like this before. I took her by the shoulders and guided her to the couch. "Sit down. Take a breath. Tell me what happened," I said. She sat there shaking for a few minutes, trying to calm down. Finally, she stared at me with these red, bulging eyes. He's been treating me like garbage for weeks now, calling me names, telling me I'm worthless, that I'm lucky he even stays with me." My stomach dropped. "What?" "However, you always claimed that your relationship was ideal," I remarked. She yelled, "I know what I said," and then instantly apologized. I apologize. I wanted no one to find out. I believed things would improve. All well, but why have you come here now? What took place this evening? Clara showed me her arm by pulling up the sleeve of her blouse. Her upper arm was covered in a dark purple bruise that resembled fingers. "Emily, he struck me. He held me so tightly yesterday that he left this mark. And he tonight." She broke down once more. "Tonight, he slapped me across the face and told me to pack my things and get out, so I did." Something heated rose in my chest as I gazed at that bruise. In the few times I'd met him, Mark had always struck me as a kind man, quiet, courteous, and lacking in any qualities that would have led me to believe he was capable of murder. Jesus, Clara, why didn't you call the police? All I wanted was to leave him. I was unable to think clearly. "I came here after throwing some clothes in a suitcase," she added. I prepared her some mint tea in the kitchen. Clara needed all the assistance she could get, and Mom always mentioned that mint tea helped soothe anxieties. She was sitting there looking at nothing when I returned it. I said, "Here, drink this," as I sat next her. With trembling hands, she picked up the cup and took a careful drink. She appeared to calm down after a few minutes. She said, "Emily, I need to ask you something," without turning to face me. "May I remain here for a bit?" "Only till I decide what to do." "You are welcome to remain." I said, "You're my sister." She added, "I'm going to divorce him," as her voice grew louder. "I'm going to hold him accountable for what he did to me in court. I demand payment for all of the mistreatment." I gave a nod. "I know someone who can assist with that, in fact. Janet Morrison is a lawyer there. She focuses on instances involving domestic abuse. I can give her a call in the morning tomorrow. I brought her an additional blanket and some fresh towels after escorting her to the guest room. I returned to my room once she shut the door, but I was unable to fall asleep. I couldn't stop thinking about what she had said. She had mocked at me for being unmarried and boasted about her intense love with Mark. Had her lies been an attempt to hide the truth? Or had things suddenly become worse? The following morning, I felt as though a vehicle had struck me. My head was hammering, and I had only slept for maybe 3 hours. I knew Clara was up as well since I could hear her moving about in the guest room. After making coffee, I considered giving Janet Morrison a call. She gave me her card when we met at a networking event the previous year. She told me she specialized in assisting women escape abusive circumstances and looked incredibly intelligent. Clara needed this more than anything else. Clara came downstairs wearing one of my old t-shirts and a pair of sweatpants I'd lent her. She looked better than she had the night before, but her eyes were still puffy. "Morning," I said, pouring her a cup of coffee. "Listen, I was thinking about that lawyer I mentioned. I'm going to call her this morning before I start work." Clara nodded and took a sip of her coffee. I made us some scrambled eggs and toast, and we sat there eating in comfortable silence for a few minutes. "So, what's the plan?" I asked. "Are you going to file for divorce right away?" Clara put down her fork and looked at me with this weird expression. "Actually, I've been thinking about that all night. I don't think I want to involve a lawyer just yet. Maybe we can talk things through without getting lawyers involved." I stared at her. "Clara, you showed up at my door crying with a suitcase because he hit you." "Look, Emily, I'm an adult. I can make my own decisions about my marriage," she said. I wanted to argue with her, but something in her tone told me to back off. "Okay, fine. But if you change your mind, the offer's still on the table," I said. The next few days were weird. Clara didn't leave the house much except to visit some friends. She said she needed time to recover from the stress of everything that had happened, but she wasn't working, wasn't helping around the house, and basically just laid on my couch all day watching Netflix. A week went by like this. Then 2 weeks. Clara would sleep until noon, eat whatever I cooked, and then spend the rest of the day either on the couch or out with friends. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. We were having dinner one night, and I decided to bring it up gently. "Clara, maybe it's time for you to start looking for a job and maybe help out around here a little, like cooking dinner sometimes," I said. She looked at me like I'd just suggested she rob a bank. "Emily, I'm going through a really difficult time right now. I can't handle job hunting stress on top of everything else," she said. "I understand that, but I'm just asking for a little help. You work from home, so you're here all day anyway. This is your house, so you should be taking care of it," she replied. I felt my face get hot, but I didn't want to fight with her. That evening, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Hi, Emily. I wanted to check in about Clara. How is she doing?" I took a deep breath. "Mom, she's been here for 2 weeks now, and she's not working or helping out at all," I said. There was silence on the other end. Then Mom's voice got that lecturing tone. "Emily, I can't believe you're complaining about helping your sister. She's been through trauma. Family helps family. You should be ashamed of yourself," she said. "I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking for some help around the house," I replied. "You need to be a good sister right now. Clara needs your support, not your judgment," she said. After she hung up, I sat there feeling frustrated. Clara had always been the golden child, and no matter what she did, they took her side. A couple of weeks later, I finally asked Clara directly, "When are you going to divorce Mark?" "I'm planning to meet with him on neutral territory to discuss the divorce," she said. "Clara, I still know that divorce lawyer, Janet Morrison. She could really help you." Clara waved her hand dismissively. "I don't need a lawyer yet. I want to try talking to him first." A couple of days later, Clara left early in the morning. "I'm going to meet with Mark," she said. "We're going to talk everything through." "Okay, just be careful. Call me if you need anything," I said. She was gone all day. I tried calling her around lunchtime, then again in the afternoon. No answer. By evening, I was getting worried. I called her phone 5 more times. Nothing. I was exhausted from worrying. It was almost 11 p.m. when I heard the front door open. I went to see who it was, and I couldn't believe what I saw. Clara walked in, followed by Mark. Both of them were smiling and looked like they'd been drinking. Clara, what the hell is going on? I asked. Emily, great news. Mark and I talked everything through, and we've reconciled. We went to that nice restaurant downtown to celebrate. And now we want to stay here for a while to consolidate our reconciliation, just for a little while until we find our own place, she said. Absolutely not, I said. I'm not having him in my house. Clara's face immediately crumpled, and she started crying. Emily, why don't you want me to be happy? This is my chance to save my marriage. She ran upstairs in tears, leaving me alone with Mark. I looked at him. I don't approve of your behavior, and I don't want you here. Mark just grinned at me. Your sister loves me, Emily. And I'm here because my wife is here. Right then, my phone rang. It was Mom. Clara must have called her from upstairs. I went into the kitchen and answered. Hello, Emily. What is wrong with you? Mom started shouting immediately. Clara has a chance to save her marriage and mend things with her husband, and you're interfering with them. Mom, this can't happen in my house, I said. You're being selfish. Think about your sister's happiness. Think about sisterly feelings, she said. I felt like my head was going to explode. Fine. They can stay for 2 weeks. Then they need to move out, I said. Thank you, Emily. You're doing the right thing, she replied. I hung up and went back to the living room. Clara had come back downstairs, and both she and Mark were looking at me hopefully. 2 weeks, I said. Then you both need to find your own place. They both smiled like they'd won the lottery. The next morning, Mark showed up at my door with a bunch of suitcases and boxes. I moved out of our apartment, he said. The lease was up anyway. I'll be looking for another place to live while we're here. Great. Now I had 2 house guests instead of 1. Having Mark in my house was like living with a completely different person than the quiet guy I'd met before. He acted like he owned the place. The real problem started with the food situation. I'd been cooking light meals for Clara and myself, salads, fish, vegetables, stuff like that. But Mark was a meat and potatoes kind of guy. The first dinner I made after he arrived was grilled salmon with steamed broccoli. Mark took one look at his plate and made a face. I don't eat fish. I need meat. This rabbit food isn't going to fill me up, he said. Clara immediately jumped in. Emily, Mark works construction all day. He needs more substantial meals. You should cook more high-calorie dishes for him. I felt my eye twitch. I should cook what for him? You know, like steak or pork chops or meatloaf. Real food that will keep him satisfied, she said. I set my fork down very carefully because I was about to throw it at Mark's head. Okay, here's what's going to happen. From now on, I'm cooking for myself. If you don't like what I make, you can either cook for yourselves or order takeout. Clara looked shocked. Emily, that's not very hospitable. Hospitable? You're staying in my house for free, eating my food for free, and now you want me to change my entire diet to accommodate your husband. I said. Mark and Clara exchanged looks, but didn't say anything else. They both looked pretty unhappy about it, though. So, that's how it went for the next couple of weeks. I'd make my own dinner, and they'd order pizza or Chinese takeout. The delivery guys were at my house so much they probably thought I was running a restaurant. The 2 weeks I'd given them turned into 3 weeks. Every time I brought up them moving out, Clara would give me some excuse about needing more time to look for an apartment or Mark needing to save up money for a deposit. Finally, I'd had enough. Clara, it's been 3 weeks. When are you guys moving out? Clara giggled, actually giggled, and said, Oh, Emily, Mark and I are having like a second honeymoon. You wouldn't understand since you've never been married. That comment hit me like a slap in the face. The way she said it, like I was some sad spinster who couldn't possibly understand love or relationships. I must have had a look on my face because both Clara and Mark suddenly got serious. We need another 2 weeks to save up for apartment rent, Mark said quickly. This is the last extension, I said. 2 weeks, and then you're both out. I started counting down the days. I was dreaming about having my house back to myself, being able to cook what I wanted, not having to listen to Mark's loud phone calls or Clara's constant chatter. But then something happened that made me realize this whole reconciliation thing might not be as perfect as they were pretending. I was coming back from the grocery store one afternoon and heard shouting from inside the house. I quietly opened the front door and could hear Clara and Mark arguing in the living room. "You promised me things would be different," Clara was yelling. "I told you I was sorry about that. What more do you want from me?" Mark shouted back. "I want you to stop treating me like garbage." "Maybe if you weren't so damn demanding all the time," Clara said. I heard footsteps stomping around, and then I heard Clara scream, "Don't you dare raise your hand to me." I rushed into the living room just in time to see Mark with his hand raised, about to hit Clara. The second he saw me, he dropped his hand and ran out of the room. Clara was standing there with tears in her eyes, looking scared. "Clara, are you okay?" I asked. She wiped her eyes quickly. "Yeah, I'm fine. We were just having a disagreement. He was about to hit you." "I saw it," I said. "No, he wasn't." "You misunderstood what you saw," she replied. "Clara, he's not going to change. You need to divorce him and get away from him," I said. Her face suddenly got angry. "How dare you talk about my husband like that? You don't know anything about our relationship. Mark loves me, and I love him." She ran after Mark, leaving me standing there shaking my head. I realized this was never going to end well. Mark was the same abusive guy he'd always been, and Clara was going to keep defending him no matter what he did to her. The following Saturday morning, I was in my kitchen having coffee when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I looked through the peephole before opening the door. Standing on my porch were two people I recognized but hadn't seen in over a year, Mark's parents, Linda and Bob. They were both holding suitcases and smiling. I opened the door, confused. "Linda, Bob, what are you doing here?" "Emily, so good to see you," Linda said, giving me a hug I didn't want. "We came to visit Mark and Clara. They invited us to stay for a while." "They invited you to stay in my house?" I asked. Bob nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, they said you had plenty of room and wouldn't mind having us." I was about to tell them that actually, I did mind very much, when Clara came running downstairs. "Linda, Bob," she squealed, hugging Mark's mother. "I'm so glad you made it. Emily, isn't this wonderful? Linda and Bob are going to stay with us for a while." I grabbed Clara's arm and pulled her into the kitchen. "What the hell do you think you're doing? You can't invite people to stay in my house without asking me first." "Emily, please. This is really important. Having Mark's parents here will help us work on our relationship. It'll be like family therapy," she said. "I don't care what it's like." "You had no right to invite them without asking me," I replied. Clara got down on her knees, literally got down on her knees, and clasped her hands together. "Please, Emily, I'm begging you. Just for 1 week. Please let them stay for 1 week." I looked at her kneeling there and realized I was going to lose this argument no matter what I said. 1 week, that's it? Then all 4 of you are leaving my house." Clara jumped up and hugged me. "Thank you. You're the best sister ever." She ran back to the living room to tell Linda and Bob the good news. And that's how my house went from having 2 unwanted house guests to having 4. The week that followed was absolutely miserable. Linda and Bob were retired, so they were home all the time. They criticized everything I did. They made comments about how people their age worked in real offices, not from home like lazy millennials. They complained about my furniture, my food, the temperature of my house, the way I organized my kitchen cabinets. In our day, women knew how to keep a proper house, Linda said one morning while I was trying to work. In our day, people didn't sit around in their pajamas all day pretending to work on a computer, Bob added. I gritted my teeth and tried to ignore them, but it was impossible to concentrate on my programming projects with them constantly talking and criticizing everything. The worst part was mealtimes. Now I was feeding 4 people who didn't like anything I cooked, and they all expected me to cater to their preferences. Linda wanted everything overcooked. Bob complained that my coffee was too weak. Mark still refused to eat anything that wasn't meat and potatoes, and Clara just sat there agreeing with whatever anyone else said. By the end of that week, I was ready to lose my mind. I was counting down the hours until they all had to leave. By the end of that week, I was at my breaking point. I woke up Saturday morning, and the first thing I thought was, today, they all leave. I'd marked it on my calendar and everything. 1 week was up. I needed to go grocery shopping because feeding 4 people had emptied my fridge faster than I'd expected. I made my list, grabbed my purse, and headed out to the store. I was halfway to the grocery store when I realized I'd forgotten my wallet on the kitchen counter. All my credit cards and cash were in it. I had to turn around and go back home. I parked in my driveway and used my key to open the front door quietly, not wanting to announce that I was back. I just wanted to grab my wallet and leave again quickly. But as I walked toward the kitchen, I heard voices coming from the living room. They were talking, and I could hear my name being mentioned. I stopped and listened. "Clara's doing everything right," Linda was saying. "She's being very smart about this whole situation." "Absolutely," Bob agreed. "Emily's got this big house all to herself, and she's not even married. It's perfect. And now that Clara's pregnant, Emily really won't be able to kick her out," Mark said. I froze. Clara was pregnant? She hadn't told me anything about being pregnant. "That's the beauty of it," Linda continued. "Once Clara's showing, Emily won't have the heart to throw out her pregnant sister. And by then, we can look into tenant rights. I bet there are laws about this kind of thing." "My friend Martha went through something similar," Bob said. "Her daughter-in-law's sister let them stay for a few months, and then when she tried to kick them out, they had legal rights as tenants. They ended up staying for 2 years without paying rent." Clara's voice chimed in. "Do you really think we could make that work here?" "Honey, ideally you, Mark, and the baby could end up living here permanently," Linda said dreamily. "Emily's single. She doesn't need all the space. You guys could settle in here legally and never have to worry about rent or buying groceries again. Emily makes good money as a programmer. She can afford to support all of us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were planning to take over my house. They wanted to stay here permanently without paying anything and have me support all of them financially. I was so angry I could barely see straight. I walked into the living room and said, "I heard everything." All 4 of them jumped and started talking at once. "Emily, you misunderstood what we were saying," Clara said quickly. "We were just talking hypothetically," Mark added. "You're taking things out of context," Bob said. "No, I understood perfectly," I said. "You're planning to claim tenant rights and live in my house permanently while I pay for everything." Clara stood up and put her hands on her stomach. "Emily, I'm pregnant. You can't throw out your pregnant sister." "Watch me," I said. "I want all of you out of my house right now. You can't do this." Clara started crying. "I'm carrying your niece or nephew. I don't care if you're carrying triplets. Get out," I said. Linda stepped forward. "Emily, be reasonable. Family should help family." "Family doesn't scheme to steal each other's houses," I replied. "You have 2 hours to pack your stuff and leave." They all started arguing and shouting at me at once, but I walked into the kitchen and called the police non-emergency line. I explained the situation and asked what my rights were as a homeowner. The officer told me that since none of them had signed a lease or paid rent, they had no tenant rights, and I could ask them to leave immediately. When I told them what the police had said, they finally started taking me seriously. They grumbled and complained, but they went upstairs to pack their things. It took them 2 hours to get all their stuff together. They loaded everything into Mark's truck and Bob's car. None of them said goodbye to me. Clara was still crying and saying I was a terrible person, but I didn't care anymore. After they left, I sat in my living room in complete silence for the first time in weeks. It felt amazing. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Emily, how could you do this to your sister?" She started shouting immediately. "She's pregnant, and you threw her out onto the street." "Mom, I heard them planning to steal my house and live here permanently without paying rent," I said. There was silence for a few seconds. Then Mom said, "Emily, you're single, and you have this big house all to yourself. Clara is going to have a baby. You could have just given her the house." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Given her my house, the house I worked for years to afford? "It would have been the sisterly thing to do," she added. I hung up on her. Then I blocked her number, Dad's number, and Clara's number. They tried calling me from different numbers over the next few days, but I hung up immediately every time. They sent me text messages from unknown numbers, but I deleted them without reading them. In the end, I changed my phone number. A whole year went by. I didn't talk to any of them. I found out from my cousin Lisa that Clara had given birth to a daughter a few months ago. Lisa also told me that Mark had eventually shown his true colors again. He'd beaten Clara up pretty badly and kicked her and the baby out of their apartment. Clara had sued him for domestic violence, and they were getting divorced. Lisa said Clara and the baby were now living with our parents and that Clara had been asking Lisa for my new phone number, but I told Lisa not to give it to her. I don't feel sorry for any of them. They made their choices and showed me exactly who they really were. Clara chose to defend an abusive husband and try to steal my house. My parents chose to support her scheme and think I should just hand over my home because I'm single. I'm better off without all of them. My house is quiet and peaceful again. I cook what I want to eat, work in peace, and don't have anyone criticizing me or planning to take advantage of me.